Soren Peterson.
Here.
Cam Gonzalez.
Here.
Mike Cunningham.
Here.
Marna Smith. Here. Marcy Husted here. And Chuck Gonzalez absent.
No, Chuck Schultz is.
I mean, Chuck
Cam
Schultz.
Gonzalez. Cam Schultz isn't here either.
Cam Sorry.
Oh, the fun's already
Mixed up
starting.
the names.
At this time, I'd like to suspend our regular board meeting to conduct a public hearing. The purpose of the annual public hearing is to hear objections which may be offered against the estimated cost for police and fire protection and the distribution of the levy for the fiscal year beginning April 1st, 2017. No comments? Anybody like to make any comments about the tax levy?
We always object to the cost, but it's just...
Well, being that there are none, we will close the public hearing and reconvene our regular township board meeting. I would like to make one change to the agenda. It's to buy a computer for the treasurer. Her laptop went kapooey, so we have a quote. We'll add that on as new business item number 10, purchase computer for treasurer. Do we have any other changes to the agenda? Motion to approve?
So moved. Support.
It's been motioned to approve the agenda as amended. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Next is approval of the consent agenda. The regular board meeting minutes from September 6th, 2016, the treasurer's report, and the clerk's warrants and bills.
So moved.
That was Zoran on the second.
I do have one comment. The treasurer's report, I noticed, it says period ending
Usually I need
September.
to state the motion, and then we can
Oh,
talk about
sorry.
it.
I just remembered, it says September instead of August. It's the wrong period ending. It should be August, not September.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Okay. All right, so it's been motioned and supported to approve the consent agenda with the correction of August meeting minutes. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Next is communications. Item number 1, the Planning Commission approved meeting minutes from August 9th, 2016, the revenue and expenditure report from August 31st, 2016, and the Planning Commission meeting synopsis from September 13th, 2016.
Move to resolve.
That's not a resolution.
Place on file.
To place on
To
file.
receive.
Receive, sorry.
Okay. It's been motioned and supported to receive and place on file communications 1, 2, and 3. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed. Next, public remarks. Anybody in the audience like to make any public remarks about our agenda or any other business? All right. Being none, we have no unfinished business, so we'll move on to new business. Item number 1 is a presentation of our township audit by the Gabbridge and Company.
Good evening. I'd like to thank the board for allowing us to be able to serve as your auditor. Very much was a pleasure working with the staff. Marna, Marcy, and Maureen all did a wonderful job of providing us with the information that we needed in order to be able to conduct the audit. We received the information well in advance of field work, which is certainly something that we appreciate, and it's always a good sign in terms of which clients are ready for us and which clients are not. So getting that well in advance is certainly appreciated and leads to an overall efficient engagement. We didn't have any proposed adjusting journal entries throughout the course of our audit, which is 2 years in a row. And that certainly is very rare, especially for a township with the size and complexity of Tyrone. That is certainly an accomplishment. And we've got a 55 or 56 page report, and really the single most important item in this report is right on top of page, I'm sorry, at the bottom of page 1. It's our opinion. So based on the fact that we received a trial balance and financial statements from the township, and we also received all the supporting schedules to substantiate the revenues, expenditures, assets, and liabilities, we rendered what's referred to as an unmodified opinion. or a clean opinion. It doesn't sound flattering, but it's the highest level of opinion that we can provide on financial statements. And basically what that means is that the financial statements are fairly presented in all material respects as of March 31st, 2016. It does mean something to achieve an unmodified opinion, but it should always be the township's goal to get that unmodified opinion. It's basically just a way of demonstrating that managers of the financial statements are doing their job, controls are effective, the information that's being provided to the board is timely and accurate throughout the course of the year. And they did a very good job of going through the audit process and making sure that the financials were fairly presented. So next, in going through the rest of the audit report, the first section that I take readers through is management discussion and analysis. I would think of that as being the Cliff Note version of the audit report. So it's got 55, 56 pages. You know, this 8-page section is a good synopsis of the entire report. It gives financial highlights. We've got 3 bullet points that show some of the key ratios of the township as of March 31st, 2016. We also have comparative financial statements, which give a little bit of historical trend analysis, so you can see how the township has done each of the past 2 years to get some a historical perspective as to the direction that those key asset and liability and revenues and expenses are going over time. And then it also has a brief narrative explaining the reasons for the significant changes each of the past 2 years. So starting on page 3, I'll walk through those financial highlights. The first bullet point shows that the assets and liability, the assets and deferred outflows of the township exceeded its liabilities and deferred inflows. Again, that's GASB making things a little bit more complicated than they used to be. But basically, the net position or the equity of the township is $17,417,655. Doesn't mean that the township has $17 million of cash available, but theoretically, if the township were to sell all of its assets, all of its infrastructure, and paid all of its liabilities off, theoretically, there'd be $17.4 million left over. The next sentence down shows that of that amount, $7,221,062 is unrestricted. So again, there's not $7.2 million of cash, but we're getting to a figure that's a little bit more liquid and represents what the township could have available on a short-term basis when looking at its elements of net position. The second bullet point down gets into the fund balance of the township. So now we're taking a shorter-term focus, a shorter-term look at the assets and liabilities of the township. And you can see that across the governmental funds of the township, fund balances were $6,637,565, which is about a $1.1 million increase over the prior fiscal year, which is a good sign to see increasing fund balance. Of that $6.6 million, $1,173,170, or roughly 18%, is unassigned. And that's available at the township's discretion to cover wages and supplies and the day-to-day operating costs of the township. So we started at $17 million. Now we've kind of worked our way down to $1.1 million. That's the unassigned fund balance, which is a much better representation of what the township truly has available for expenditures throughout the course of the year. And the third bullet point down shows, it gives us an idea of how that $1.1 million stacks up when we compare it to the total annualized expenditures of the township. And you can see that $1.1 million is about 162% of the township's general fund expenditures. In the state of Michigan, it's not unusual for townships to have anywhere from 100 to 150% sitting in their general fund balance. The prudent townships have that level. So it's a good spot for the township to be. Not too much, not too little. 1.1 million certainly seems like a lot of money, but when we take into consideration what the cost of a street improvement is, or building improvement, park improvements, things of that nature, that buffer is needed to be able to cover those future capital improvements. So good fiscal shape as of March 31st, 2006. Next, if you turn to page 6, we get a look at the comparative revenues comparative assets and liabilities of the township for each of the past 2 years. 3 rows I wanted to point out here. The very top row, cash and cash equivalents as of March 31st, 2015 compared to 2016. You can see that the cash increased from about $4.5 million to about $5.1 million. So healthy increase in cash over the year, which again is a sign of good, prudent financial management. Next, the long-term debt in the non-current liabilities section, which is about 3/4 of the way down. you can see that long-term debt was $9,337,640 as of March 31st, 2015. And as of March 31st, 2016, that number decreased to $9,010,329. So basically, there's about $5.1 million of cash and about just over $9 million of long-term debt. So there is enough cash available to be able to cover the upcoming debt service needs of the township. And then lastly, the unrestricted net position of the township increased from $5,010,331 as of March 31st, 2015 to $7,221,062 as of March 31st, 2016. About a $2 million increase. It's slightly skewed by the fact that there was a special assessment issued during 2016, and governmental accounting standards required us to recognize all of the special assessment revenue in the year that is issued as opposed to the 20 years that is actually going to be collected. So we have this one-time increase in revenues. It slightly skews it, and we'll see that on the next page, when in reality it represents a 20-year asset to the township. So it's not necessarily cash available now, but it does represent a long-term asset for the township. So if we look at page 8, we get a look at comparative revenues and expenses for the township for each of the past 2 years. And in the middle column, we can see business type activities had capital grants and contributions 3 rows down in the 2016 column of $1,857,991. And again, $1.6 million of that relates to the Lake Tyrone sewer improvement special assessment. And again, it's $1.6 million. We recognize it as revenue in year 1, but really it's going to be collected over the course of the next 20 years. So it kind of skews operating activities as of March 31st, 2016. If you look in the 2016 column in the total government, 3 rows up from the bottom, the change in net position for the year was $2,257,217, an increase in 2016 compared to 2015. The increase in 2015 was $799,880. So really the biggest difference year over year was that $1.6 million special assessment that was recognized as revenue in 2016. So that increase in net position of $2.2 million took total net position from $15.1 million to $17.4 million as of March 31st, 2016. Next, if you want to turn to page 16, we get a more traditional look at the finances of a municipality. These statements are the fund financial statements of the township. These are on the modified accrual basis of accounting. And I'd probably get slightly in trouble for saying this, but this is really more like a cash basis accounting. So how much cash and immediate resources does the township have to be able to cover its immediate obligations? And you can see again that the general fund has unassigned fund balance of $1,173,170 as of March 31st, 2016. The Public Safety Fund has a positive fund balance of $595,000. And then all of the other governmental funds have a positive fund balance as well of $471,407. That's the aggregate of all the other special revenue funds of the township. So healthy financial condition, not only for the general fund, but for the other funds as well. Many of our townships are showing funds with deficit balances and things of that nature. They're still weathering the storm from 2008 through 2013, 2014. They're starting to see some recovery across the state. And accordingly, they still have some deficit fund balances, but that certainly is not the case here at Tyrone Township. Very prudent financial management and strong financial condition as of March 31st, 2016 across all of its governmental funds. Next, page 18. We are still on the modified accrual or the cash basis of accounting, so to speak. This shows our total revenues or cash in during the course of the year compared to expenditures or cash out during the course of the year. And you can see in the very first column, the general fund, 4 rows up from the bottom, had an increase in fund balance of $907,670. And then if we look at the Public Safety Fund, that too had an increase in fund balance of $197,263. And then all of the other funds aggregated had an increase in fund balance of $6,116. If we look at all the governmental funds of the township, there was a $1.1 million increase for the year ended March 31st, 2016. So not only do they have a healthy financial condition as of March 31st, 2016, there was across all funds, which again is a sign of prudent financial management by the township. Next, if you turn to page 22, we are going to take a look just at the sewer fund. And this is a statement of cash flows, which it takes a look at the cash that came into the sewer fund during the year, not necessarily focusing on revenues and expenses. It's just, this is strictly cash in versus cash out. So when we look at the day-to-day operating activities of the sewer fund, it's 4 rows down from the top. You can see that cash flows from operating activities were a positive $273,851. So when we take the total cost of operating the sewer fund compared to the revenues, there was an increase in that position, or an increase in cash of $273,000, which is good. That provides for the flexibility for the township to be able to cover upcoming infrastructure needs. Next row down, or the next section down, you can see that cash flows from non-capital financing activities had an increase in cash of $425,000 during the year, and that is the result of a borrowing, continued borrowing from the township's general fund to be able to cover the debt service requirements of the sewer fund. The next section down, the cash flows from capital and related financing activities. In other words, the debt service activity. The township has debt service pressure to meet its obligations during the course of the year. And there was a consumption of $327,227. So in other words, about $325,000 was used for those capital and related financing activities during the course of the year. So net of the operating and non-capital and capital activities, there was an increase in cash of $383,613. But for the advance from the general fund, there actually would have been a decrease in cash in the sewer fund. But with that borrowing from the general fund, there was an increase, leading to ending cash and cash equivalents of $3,441,130 as of March 31st, 2016. Another item worth pointing out is that the sewer fund had positive total net position and positive unrestricted net position. 2 years ago, the township had to file a deficit elimination plan for its sewer fund, but this is 2 years in a row with good track record, good history in eliminating the need to file any type of deficit elimination plan for the sewer fund. The last thing that I wanted to point out, if you turn to the very end of the audit report, the very end of the booklet, the page numbering resets because it's actually a side letter. It'll be page 3 of that side letter. When we conduct our audit, we aren't necessarily rendering an opinion on internal control, but in order for us to be able to conduct our audit, we do need to assess our clients' internal controls and make sure that they're effectively designed and operating as they've been designed. If we see anything that we think is broken, if there's something that if there's a control that isn't suitably designed for its purpose, or maybe it is well designed but it's not being carried out on a day-to-day basis, it's our requirement as auditors to put that in writing and bring it to the board's attention. The vast majority of our clients do have some level of findings that we put in writing, and I'm happy to report the second to last paragraph, the second to last sentence, we state that we did not identify any deficiencies in internal control that we consider to be material weaknesses. Again, not a very glowing review, but it actually is the highest level of highest statement that we can provide with regard to how effectively a client's controls are operating. In other words, controls are well designed and being carried out on a day-to-day basis effectively, and there's nothing that merits the attention of the board. So management is doing a very on those controls. That's everything that I wanted to cover, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions that the board might have.
I don't have anything.
I have none.
I think they're going to let you off easy tonight.
All right,
Yeah.
very good. I was a little nervous when I saw the stick.
We like to keep that around. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. And thank you for the audit.
That's funny.
All right. Next is request of Scott Weichel for land division and shared driveway approval. You want to talk about
Yes, Mr. Weichel came to us originally in a subcommittee meeting, and we met with him. He's been a gentleman all the way through. He had everything prepared to each and every meeting. He went through the process in the planning commission, furnished us with everything we needed. The last thing I believe came through was the recordable driveway agreement. And we have,
Copy of that?
yeah,
I don't know
please.
that we do.
Maybe not, but I want to give you.
I just want to make
Oh,
sure that, I just want to make sure that we have it in hand before we.
Perfect. Okay.
I wasn't sure if they'd been presented to our deputy clerk or not, so.
He told me to bring it tonight.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's been recorded.
Good.
Well, it's actually, it's been
Been
notarized. I'm sorry.
Notarized, it's recordable.
It's ready to be recorded, and it's recordable. Okay.
It's recordable.
Yeah, one hoop first.
I think that was the key stipulation.
Pass that down to Terry.
Here, give that to Miss Terry. Okay.
Kevin fulfilled all the requirements, and I would say that he is one of the few people that we meet in the process that was prepared each and every meeting that we had with him. And he's to be commended, and I move to approve his request.
Support. How easy that is. All right, it's been motion and supported to approve the Scott Weichel Land Division and Shared Driveway. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Congratulations. Thanks.
Thank you.
Next is request to approve the 2017-2018 special assessment budget.
I can make this a little bit bigger.
There you go.
Mike, can I just ask?
Sure.
So at this point, do I just take all my documentation and go record it at the county, or am I going to get some type of a letter?
You
from
get
the
a,
township?
Yeah.
don't you stamp it from the clerk? Yeah.
Do we have the original, do you have a big survey or drawing?
Yeah, Ross has a copy.
Okay.
Then the clerk will sign it, and then we'll give you an approval letter, and we can have that ready tomorrow. I can call you.
Yeah.
You know, I'm tied up during the day, but you can certainly mail it to me right away.
Okay.
Thank you. Have a great night.
You
Thank
too.
you.
Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Okay, so this is the special assessment budgets that I had to put together for fiscal year 17-18 because we have to get the information to the county on what we're going to actually be assessing each parcel. So you can see I have there's a couple road maintenance, couple waste removals, couple lighting assessments, and I have public safety, and then the sewer. Of kind of wrapped around there, so. Okay, so, so these are what I have to get to the county, the revenue that we're going to be billing the residents on December 1st. So does anybody have any questions on any of this?
No. As long as all your fund balances are in the positive, that's the important thing.
Yeah, we can't have negative fund balance.
Right, right.
So the beginning fund balance is positive and the ending fund balance is positive.
Yep,
That's the key.
everything's in order.
So moved.
Support.
It's been motioned and supported to approve the 2017 special assessment budgets. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? That motion carries. Next is request to approve the 2016 winter tax special assessment levies.
Okay. Pardon?
Along the same line.
It is along the same lines. The first section is the public safety, the levy of the mills for 2016. And then the next section is the amounts that are going to be assessed for the individual special assessments. And I have them broken down by the type of assessment that it is.
Okay, you got, all right, you have Lake Tyrone on there. Okay. All right. And there's only one for the township this year that was verified?
Correct.
Because I know prior years we've had 2 or 3. That was the
Correct.
township's portion, but, okay. This is our 12-1 levies.
Help me
Right.
out, and I know I've asked this question before, but the title on delinquent sewer O&M, explain why it's delinquent?
I'll let Marna do that.
I can help with that.
Okay. I know I've asked this
current-
question before, and I just can't remember.
It's been complex prior years, and actually this year, we will be consolidating, so in the following years, it'll only be one. It'll be the township's level. Currently, the county has had O&M with Lake Tyrone on their own, when they had the old existing system.
Okay.
And when people were delinquent on that, they would set their own special assessment to collect those delinquent O&Ms. We have our own.
Yeah.
Now it's all diverting
To one.
to one, so next year it will only be
Okay.
the townships
Thank
for
you.
the O&M.
You answered this question before.
Okay.
So thanks.
All right.
By the third or fourth time, I might actually get it, so thank you.
Yeah.
This year, in the past, we haven't done this approval by resolution, but following the guidance of another township, and this is how they do this, so this year, we're going to start by approving these in the form of resolution.
Sure. So resolved.
Support.
It's been resolved and supported to approve the 2016 winter tax special assessment levies. Can I get a roll call vote, please?
Marna Smith,
Yes.
Cam Gonzalez.
Yes.
Mike Cunningham.
Yes.
Soren Peterson.
Yes.
David Walker.
Yes.
Marcy Husted, yes, and Chuck Schultz absent.
Next item on the agenda is item number 5, is the request to extend the snow removal contract for the Township Hall for 1 year.
And we had a contract with them, with Shoemakers for 3 years, expiring October 30th of 2016. And there was a mutual agreement that the contract could be extended for an additional 2 years. And we've contacted Shoemakers, and they are willing to renew it at the same rates.
And for historical purposes, we've used them for a little bit of time now. We did put this out to bid at one point, and they just kept extending contract, so.
So moved.
Support.
It's been motioned and supported to extend the snow removal contract for the Township Hall with Shoemaker. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? That motion carries. Next is request to approve the propane service contract at 1.099 cents per gallon.
And we currently have a contract with Webster and Garner that, well, actually, it expired November 6th of 2015, but it says the term of this agreement may be extended for additional year periods by mutual consent. And Terry contacted them, and they quoted us a price of $1.099 per gallon for the season.
So moved.
It's been motioned and supported to approve the propane service contract with Webster Garner at 1.099 cents per gallon. Any further discussion?
Do you remember what it was last year when we locked it? in?
It was the same.
It was
It
the
was exactly the
same.
same?
It's been that for,
Yours.
Oh, yeah, if I can
I wanna
get you
say
delivered
4 or 5
that rate
years.
at 10320 Center Road.
That's what everybody else
I'll
was saying
reimburse
last
you,
year.
so I can't get it for that.
you just run a line.
Pardon?
Run a line.
Yeah, just run a line.
Got to meter it
Change the
though.
address. I use Webster and Garner too, I don't get that
Yeah.
rate, so.
All right, so I think you had motion.
We've got a motion and support.
Yeah.
Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Next is item number 7 that was put on the agenda by trustee Gonzalez. Discussion for future use of the old township hall. Would you like to take the reins on that, Cam?
One of the things that has concerned me over the years and is the small unit back there. It can be put to a lot better use than storing old records. You catch a tinder from somewhere, a lightning bolt, those records are gone. My suggestion, again, is, and I have given this a lot of thought, is that we let the Historical Society have for their use and upkeep, they can take care of it. The cost of replacing those records is astronomical. So my suggestion, again, and my idea is that we rent a unit, a fireproof unit, to store the materials. The maintenance alone that we spend on the little shed out there is probably less or more than we would spend on a rental unit to store the records. And they would be safer. We wouldn't have to worry about the fire or rodents or critters getting to it.
Sure.
Which we have a problem right now, and we will continue, and we will have a much larger problem if we don't do something about that.
So about 7 years ago, once upon a time, about 7 years ago, that old historical building was used as a dumping ground for unwanted equipment. And it was very difficult to navigate. So through a lot of effort and cleaning and stuff, we've actually eliminated all the clutter from there. The only thing that's left in there are voting records, a couple of records, there's a Christmas tree in there for the Santa Claus event, and the voting equipment. There were a couple of like gorilla racks that were put in the back. Is it a facility that is currently, that we could open up to the public or let somebody use? It's questionable. But that stuff is still there, so I don't know if we want to continue to do that, or if we want to look at, alternate means, possibly, I think we've looked at erecting something on site at one time, but it would probably require some sort of heat.
Because of the voting equipment?
Yeah. I don't know if off-site makes a lot of sense, because if you take the voting equipment off-site, there's a lot of testing. This year we've had 4 election cycles, and that would mean going over to a storage unit, loading this all up on a truck, bringing it all here, testing it, putting it back on, and then taking it back. So I don't know if that's conducive to, being cost-effective there. What suggestions did you have?
I would suggest that we put it to, we can certainly, and I understand it's a real hassle to move the stuff around.
Right.
But I think in the end, the expense would be well justified if we lose. And I said that the building is, put it bluntly, it's a fire trap. It's an accident waiting to happen. And I'm sure that David will agree with me on this, being in the insurance business. We have, and I understand it's equipment, and it's equipment for voting. We have machines in there that are very expensive machinery that we need to maintain. So,
Well, and also too, let's go back to the purpose of why we brought this, why people before us brought this town hall here. Obviously, it meant something.
It's historical.
And it's a historical building, and, that's why I was pretty proactive in getting it cleaned up. I thought we were, in the past, it was not being utilized for its original intent.
I think it
so-
would be becoming for the Historical Society to have that as their little building so that we can enhance the township image, as it were.
And also, just keep in mind, the state is in the process of getting new voting equipment, which is going to happen early next year. So we're going to be eliminating those huge, yeah.
You know, I would say once we figure out what we're getting for voting equipment, then we'll be a little bit better leverage to make the right decision on where to go forward. I don't see us much happening, this winter there, but I think we should, definitely look at doing something, as spring approaches as to, where are we going and what are we doing?
Are we still maintaining the heat in that building?
Right, that's it, there's a heater.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's very, like, what, 55 or something?
But it's still.
But it still
gotta be like
costs.
heating a beer can.
It's costly.
Very much
And we
so.
have pest control.
As is this building.
Pardon my ignorance for this, but what do we have what records are we maintaining back there?
We have to keep all the
The
old,
paper, like
It's
I
the
have from my
ballot.
department,
Okay.
it's the actual paper document
we have a retention schedule for every
that we
department.
follow.
Sure.
Yeah.
A lot of it is,
But we do have it digital, too.
Well, that's my question, is there a reason, is there a statutory reason?
there
we
is
can't
statutory
digitize
reasons
that?
to have to
There-
keep hard copies of
Yeah.
certain documents. And that's what's there.
We have to keep
change the law.
anything from the election, 22
Okay.
months.
Yeah.
That's isn't that
You
the
have to keep the hard
application?
copies, the
Yeah.
paper copies of those?
Yes.
Okay.
Overall, I think the building can put to much better use than what it's being used for.
I would
right
agree
now.
with that.
We don't
I
need
think so,
that
too.
much space for storage.
Value, and we should take advantage of it. If nothing else, to improve the image of the township and help the historical society maintain a history of the township.
Yeah, I say that we should definitely bring this discussion back up once we figure out what is required for voting equipment. In the meantime, we could probably find some sort of storage location for that.
I mean, even if we're maintaining minimal heat, that's got to be just flowing out of that place.
It is.
Yeah, okay.
You had a comment, Don?
Yeah, you guys deal with Iron Mountain, how much do they get to store documents?
I could ask that.
You have a contract with them.
Sure.
As far as the voting equipment is concerned, new voting equipment, if it is heat sensitive, over here to, I don't know the guy's name, Ron Gordon?
Oh, the storage area over
Yeah.
there, yeah.
Put everything on a trailer and put that in a storage unit. That way, when you need voting equipment, you hook up to it and you go to a
So
location.
it's just already on and
Yeah.
ready to go.
Yeah. Once we figure out what equipment needs are, then we can
What
move
equipment-
down that road.
Sure.
If it's heat sensitive, you can store it in the
I hate
heat.
to buy this big of a trailer and only need this much, or this much of a trailer and need this much.
You overspec, you never underspec.
And we don't
know.
We don't know what those are going to look like yet.
Yeah, we
Well,
don't, so.
We do know that 2 of the vendors have collapsible voting ballot cans, so they collapse down to like 6 inches, like a folding table.
Wow.
There's 2 of them that have those. We do know that the auto marks that we currently use for ADA accessibility, that those are going to be much, much smaller.
Okay.
So, and those are what we need to have heated.
Yeah.
Okay. For future
So
discussion.
let's bring this back up after we find out what we need to do with, what we have to do for voting equipment, and then we'll be able to make a better decision on it. All right, so next item for discussion is engineering services. We've always put items out to bid when contracts expired. We have an engineering contract that's been expired for 4 or 5 years now, quite some time. And, having looked back and has had some discussion with other engineers, I think there's a lot of value added to having a contracted engineering service. One of the things that we could have done is Natura, that we hired to do our building inspection. Well, come to find out, an engineering firm could have done that for us.
Yeah.
Future capital needs studies, engineering firms can do that for us. Another thing that they're always doing is they're always, looking for grant opportunities for us once they have a relationship and understand what our building needs are. Actually, Phil Westmoreland is here too, and he could shed some light on some of the things that the township could benefit from by having a engineering firm. If I've missed anything, you can go ahead and pipe up. You can talk there. You can stand at the podium.
Fine, if you're fine here.
Yeah,
Sure.
we're pretty
And you
informal.
get most of them, you know, that there's a lot of value because you get staff when you need it, and it's staff that's gone when you don't. You can have, depending on the firm that you hire, you can have a wide array of experience available to you very quickly. You know, the problem with having a smaller firm is they can do a lot of things, but if you need architecture, they may not have that. If you need an electrical engineer, they may not have that. So depending on what your needs are, you can have services at your door very, very quickly. And as Mike mentioned, you know, as a consulting engineer, the longer you work with a community, the more you get to know that client, the more in tune you are with their needs, you can have a lot of benefits. We can, you know, a lot of times you sit there and you hear something and you're like, hey, we can figure out a way to do that easier for you, or quicker for you, or make your job easier. So we can hear those. You can kind of learn what the community's needs are. You can head problems off at the pass. You know, a lot more, if you're thinking down the road on things, you can find funding for it and sometimes solve problems before the community even really knows they have a problem. So there's a lot of benefits to having one. Who it is, you know, all the firms are different. They all have different personalities. They all have different strengths and weaknesses. So really, the important thing is find one that meets your needs, find one you like, that, you know, will do what the township wants you to do, and then just, you know, keep building that relationship over the time. The longer you work with a client, the easier it is to understand what the needs are. I mean, you can pick up the phone and call and say, hey, Phil, I need this, and yeah, I can have it that afternoon if you need it that quick.
What about GIS? GIS is a big thing that's new and creative, and
Yeah.
you know, how does an engineering firm help out a township with GIS as far as training or access or use? And
Yes.
All the
all
above?
of those. You know, a lot of the firms nowadays, GIS has become so enormous. Records, like you guys say, are stored now in GIS. Everything's in a one spot, so everybody can have access to it that needs it. And a lot of engineering firms, like we work with communities all the time, we tell them, you know, help them pick what softwares to use, what packages to use based on their needs. We train them, we maintain stuff for them. A lot of times, some of that GIS stuff can get really massive in terms of storage space that's needed, so we work with them to store it. I mean, we have a lot of clients that we've invested heavily in big servers that store their stuff right on there, and they have free access to it. We update it for them as it needs it. A lot, you know, I have one community that
you back it up every night too, I would assume.
yeah, they're backed up pretty frequently. I have one community where we've actually outfitted their entire field staff for their DPW with iPads. So they can now have the GIS right in their hands when they go out in the field, and they can click on a sewer line and pull up the as-built right on the iPad. So they're not having to take rolls of plans with them. They're not having to dig up stuff that's 50 years old. It's all right there. And all that technology is based on a GIS platform that's really, really easy to use. That's the way most communities are really started to go, just because it's so user-friendly. I mean, it's always just right there at your fingertips.
Can I ask a question?
Sure, absolutely.
So when you do this, I'm trying to get my head around, are you effectively doing this on a retainer?
No, most of the time you're just working on a project-by-project basis.
Okay, I mean, I'm trying to get my head around, are we contracting services and then it's on an à la carte basis? Or is this much the same as when you've got a retainer with legal counsel? I'm trying to get my head around.
It depends
the
on
fin-
how you want it.
I guess what I'm trying to get my head around is what the services are that are going to be provided, given our township size, and then B, what the financial implications of that would be, contrasted by if we just did it on an à la carte basis.
There's not a lot, and really, most engineers are not hired like attorneys. There's no retainer fee on it. you're hired on a project-by-project basis. And that project could be a plan review, you know, because I live in Livingston County, I have a lot of Livingston County clients, Marion Township, Howell Township, Putnam Township, that I work with directly. They don't need anything, they don't get a bill. If they send me a plan review, we've negotiated based on what they want me to review in that plan, that it costs $500 or $800 or $1,000 or whatever the amount is. So if they ask me to do a plan review, there it is. And you work a lot of that out front, and then if there's a bigger project, with say Marion Township, they got a SAW grant, which is a great example. I don't know if you guys got one or not, but we actually went to them and said, you're gonna need to do this, you've got a sanitary sewer system, it's gonna be a requirement down the road. You can get a grant for it now, apply. So they actually, I just got notified they got one for, I think the grant's $100,000, something like that in there. So it's not huge, but for them, it met their needs. So that we would do on a project basis is, you know, that one's a bigger one, we write up the letter proposal and say, here's how much this project is gonna cost you.
So I guess that's what I'm wondering. So what you're really doing is establishing a relationship with the township so that you've got one where you will come to them with ideas, or when we need an engineer for those type of services, then you're there. Okay.
Yeah, a lot of times, like Marion Township, I go to their board meetings, I don't charge them to go to their board meetings. You know, unless I get them a presentation on a project, then I charge it as part of that project. But,
that makes sense.
you know, part of it is just developing that understanding. I mean, I've been with them now, God, I think 11 years that I've been working with them.
Wow.
And
So given the fact the economy is kind of turning around, and we may be seeing more development versus less development, more building versus less, having access to your service then would be part of that as well, then?
correct,
Okay.
correct.
Yeah, we did just met with one of our local churches. They're going to build a new building, and it's a big one. So I'm thinking that if we have somebody available to review those plans, it'd probably be advantageous to make sure that they're doing it to what we need.
Yeah, most communities.
Makes sense to me. You got a proposal in your back pocket?
No, I don't, but you have a tomorrow morning.
I think what we need to do is create some sort of RFP or find one from another and put it out for bid. That way we've got that.
But having said that, I think the other part of that, and this is where I was trying to get to some guidance. So given the size of our township, given what our township's needs would be, what would be the 5, 7, 9 things that would need to be included in that RFP so we know
Right.
what to ask for? So by way of example, you know, we don't need massive traffic studies like Livonia or something like that if we're
Right.
going to change a driveway, but we do need other stuff that Livonia would not need. And so I guess that's my question is, can you provide us with examples of what an RFP would look like given, you know, this is what our footprint looks like on the land. This is what our budget looks like. This is what, and so that way we get an idea of what we're asking for. Because right now I think we'd be guessing. I mean, that's my concern. I'd rather not guess.
Sure, yeah, and I would definitely, you know.
Well, we just had discussion at a prior board meeting about this building itself,
Yep.
you know, and having a plan.
I think it makes perfect sense. Yeah, I think you're going to see more development versus less. I think
So
you're going to see
what
more
I'll do is I'll get a
activity versus
proposed RFP, and we'll bring it to a future meeting and see if it meets what we want, and then we'll go from there.
less. Absolutely.
Fair enough.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bill.
All right, I think we've got one or two more items. Discussion of tree cutting services. We didn't do any tree cutting this year, and we used right-of-way money. And as you know, we recently had a little issue with our recent tree bids and cutting. The road commission supervisor came in and he said, you know, it would be a lot easier if you guys would just get a price, contract with somebody. I haven't received a contract price for service yet, but he would like to know if we could use Ronald's. Obviously, we don't have anything to motion on, but Ronald's has historically done pretty well in the bidding process. Yeah, and they've done a fantastic job. I usually go drive all these tree cuttings when they happen. Ronald's came in and was gone before I could get out there.
They
he did send a proposal. Did you get that?
I did not get it.
He did send one.
Do you have it?
Is that the one you emailed?
Yeah.
One we got emailed
Okay.
this afternoon? Yeah, that one.
That
It was
one.
red.
Oh,
Yeah,
well,
that one,
slide that down here, let's talk about it.
yeah, that one,
I did not see it.
yesterday afternoon or today?
So basically what he's saying
I
is
don't
that he
remember.
will cut and trim trees
I saw it.
for right-of-way, 8.5 hours per day at $2,300. He'll chip 6-inch and smaller, so any branch that's, 6-inch
it.
diameters or smaller, he'll cut. And $200 per hour service call. So if we call him out for something, it's $200 an hour. He'll leave all wood that's 7 feet and larger.
7 inches.
7 inches in diameter
Yeah,
and
the
larger.
diameter larger, yeah.
Unless we're felling red.
I guess the only thing that I would say is that, he cuts those down into, like 8-foot lengths.
Yeah.
What would, to fit like in the back of a truck or a trailer or?
Or he can just leave them, let
Yeah, I was
somebody
gonna
sit out
say.
there and saw on them.
I was gonna say, trust me, somebody's gonna pick those up pretty quick, so.
Okay.
Probably about 15 minutes after they hit the ground.
And the nice thing about working with Ronald's, according to Wayne, is that he has a good relationship with him. And he said he can just tell him what he needs to have done, go out, put an X on the trees. Ronald's will go out, he'll do all the work. Wayne doesn't even have to go out and check on it. He just knows that Ronald's is going to get the work done and do it to his satisfaction. So we're looking at possibly entering into a 3-year contract with Ronald's so that anytime we need to have any tree work done, we can just call him and say, we need you to go out and do this, instead of going through all this bid process. Because typically Ronald's has been right in the ballpark, or, the lowest bidder, and he's done good work in the past.
Yeah, we've used them in the
I guess the only
past,
caveat to this is I'd like to have Wayne go out and mark the trees, and then Ronald's come in and say, all right, this is how many days' work we got. So he doesn't, so we know. And then we approve it on each one.
No, we know.
Right.
So that
Stay
way,
within our budget.
so we're staying within our budget. He knows that we're keeping an eye on him, and
Yeah.
we know how many trees are being cut.
Yeah, I'm okay with it.
So does anybody want to make a motion on this?
Do you need a motion for this?
Yeah, for
To enter into a
contract,
contract, I would
Because
say yes.
So are we going to enter into a contract, I guess?
Or we
a
could,
3-year, a 3-year, is that, what does he have on there?
Yeah,
Or is that
he
just
has-
his contract for a year?
starting date 10/1/16, end date 10/1/2019.
So it's a 3-year contract,
Okay.
with, that's his fees for a 3-year contract.
Okay. So moved.
I'll support.
It's been motioned and supported to enter into a contract with Warren's Tree Service for tree cutting from September 1, October, Manager's Line, October 1, 16 to October 1, 2019. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Next is to purchase the computer for Treasure. Marna has just been having a couple of weeks. Come to find out, her computer is no longer. And it's
It's a hard drive problem.
yeah.
It's met its life expectancy, is what the IT right gentleman said today.
Can't we just buy an abacus?
We could try, but counting up 4.4 million in taxes is a little tough.
You can always go back to old reliable.
We could.
Yeah. So, we recently purchased, computers from IT Right. The cost with the new Windows Office 2016 is $979. I don't expect it to be much higher than that, so I would just go ahead and add a few dollars to it, say $985, $990 max.
So this is really replacing equipment that's,
It's just
It's dead.
replacing that,
Really
I
just
think
that
it's pretty
station.
important that the treasurer have a computer.
okay.
It'd be nice to balance.
So I'll go ahead and make the motion that we purchase a new computer. Okay, I'll first state in the motion. Purchase a new computer for the treasurer with a not-to-exceed price of $990. All right, it's been motioned and supported to approve the purchase of a new computer not to exceed $990. Any further discussion?
Not to be that guy, but how do we get away with not paying sales tax?
Government.
Oh, right, governmental entity. Will you buy, I need like 38 new CPUs for my profit, okay.
I don't think we can do that.
Yeah, do that.
I'll reimburse you.
I'm sure you would. All right, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Miscellaneous
That's
business,
how people end up
none.
in prison.
Public remarks, none. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motioned and supported to adjourn our meeting. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, meeting's adjourned.
Don't want to be the Ron Blagojevich. Actually, it's the only motion that is not debatable or amendable.
While you're here, let me get some contact